In 1987, the band Def Leppard released a song that sounded almost hypnotic. Smooth guitars, layered vocals, and a dreamy atmosphere that felt very different from the loud hard rock dominating the charts at the time. The song was Hysteria. But what many people don't realize is that this song came from one of the most difficult album productions in rock history. Accidents, delays, and years of recording almost destroyed the band before the album was even finished. And somehow, out of all the chaos, they created one of the biggest rock records of the 1980s. By the mid-1980s, Def Leppard was already one of the biggest rising acts in rock music. Their 1983 album, Pyromania, had been a massive success. The record produced huge hits and sold millions of copies, turning the band into international stars almost overnight. Suddenly, the expectations for their next album were enormous. The band didn't just want another successful record. They wanted something bigger, something that could compete with the biggest pop albums in the world. That project would eventually become Hysteria, but almost immediately, things started going wrong. In 1984, tragedy struck the band. Their drummer Rick Allen was involved in a serious car accident in England. The crash was so severe that Allen lost his left arm. For many bands, something like that would have meant the end. After all, a drummer with one arm just seemed impossible. But instead of replacing him, Def Leppard decided to support Allen and find a way for him to keep playing. Engineers and technicians worked with him to create a custom electronic drum kit that allowed him to play using his feet and one arm. It was an incredible comeback story and one that would become part of rock history. When recording the album Hysteria, the band spent over 3 years in the studio. At the time, it became one of the most expensive rock albums ever made. Some estimates say that the production cost reached several $1,000,000. And remember, this was in the 1980s, which means the record label was probably sweating bullets waiting to see if the album would actually succeed. Among the many songs recorded during these marathon studio sessions was Hysteria. Unlike many of the band's heavier tracks, this song had a much more emotional tone. Producer Robert John Mutt Lang encouraged the band to experiment with a softer, more atmospheric sound. Instead of aggressive guitars, the song features shimmering layers of vocals and a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The goal was to create something that sounded almost dreamlike, and in many ways, they succeeded. When Hysteria was released, it stood out from most rock songs of the time. The track blended hard rock with pop production, creating a sound that worked perfectly for both radio and MTV. It was emotional, melodic, and incredibly polished. The song eventually climbed into the top 10 of the Billboard charts, becoming one of the band's biggest hits. For Def Leppard, it was proof that all those years of work had paid off. Once the album Hysteria was finally released in 1987, it slowly started gaining momentum. Hit after hit began climbing the charts. Songs like Pour Some Sugar on Me, Love Bites, Hysteria helped turn the album into a worldwide phenomenon. Eventually, the record would sell over 20 million copies worldwide. That's not bad for an album that almost never happened. Looking back, the sound of Hysteria also captures everything people remember about the late 80s. Huge production, layered vocals, and guitars polished so perfectly, they almost sound like lasers. Honestly, if the 1980s had a sound, it probably would have sounded a lot like this song. Today, Hysteria remains one of the defining songs of the 1980s rock era. The album took years to finish. The band faced setbacks that could have ended their career, and yet somehow they came out on the other side with one of the biggest rock albums ever recorded. For Def Leppard, the story behind Hysteria isn't just about a song. It's about resilience, determination, and proving that sometimes the greatest music comes from the toughest moments.